All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, phase one of the Pac 12 conference's new media deal is complete. As earlier today, the Pac 12 and CBS announced an agreement to extend their current partnership through the 2030-2031 academic year. And this media agreement will also include CBS televising the Pac 12 championship game in both football and men's basketball. So, what does that mean? At least three football and basketball games will be televised on TBS as well as being streamed on Paramount, while some other games are going to be shown on the CBS Sports Network. Now, like I said, this is just phase one for the new Pac 12, as they also have broadcasting agreements with ESPN and the CW for the upcoming college football season to televise games for Oregon State and Washington State. And like I said, when that deal was announced, that I would imagine it being a prelude for a longer term deal, as I simply just don't see those networks being on board for this year alone. And with the ESPN as well as the CW involved, you know that they're going to go out there and get some coverage of the Pac 12 as well, especially for me, the CW more than ESPN, in my opinion, because the CW was there for Oregon State and Washington State when nobody else was. All right. And I think I would imagine that the Pac 12 is going to repay that loyalty, if you will. But nonetheless, you've got CBS. You're probably going to get ESPN. You're probably going to get, well, definitely going to get CW, I would imagine, if you're the Pac 12. But also, like I've been saying for the longest time, will Turner get involved as well, being that they've got money to spend on sports print programming after they lost their coverage of the NBA? I think it's a possibility. And I think if you're the Pac 12, you want to try to leverage yourself as much as possible and try to get as many media partners as possible that are going to go out there and showcase your product. And I think this was a smart and prudent move by the Pac 12. And of course, with CBS right here agreeing to their partnership agreement, you got to wonder if there is more that's going to follow soon. I truly do think so from an outsider's perspective. And the reason is it's been slow moving for quite some time with the Pac 12. But nonetheless, I think once the dominoes start to fall, it's going to speed things up. And I think CBS was a big move for the Pac 12. And I think the other chips are about to fall in place. And when it's all said and done, now the Pac 12 can go a courting, if you will, as they still need their eighth full time member. And of course, all signs point to that member being Texas State. Remember, Texas State, once upon a time, was being recruited by the Mountain West. Texas State said thanks, but no thanks. And at that case, you know, you had to wonder whether the Bobcats were going to stay in their current league, the Sun Belt Conference, or were they going to look at the new Pac 12? And I've said this for quite some time. I'm not the only one. I truly do believe that the next team is, or the next school rather, is going to be Texas State. I would imagine, and this is an outsider's perspective, I would imagine, you know, they're talking about, you know, a share. How much of a piece of the pie is Texas State going to get? Are they going to get a full share, three-quarter share? I don't know. Okay, but nonetheless, we've got to sit back and wait and see. But I truly do think that at this point, Texas State makes the most sense. You figure the Pac-12, like I said, they've gotten 5 schools from the Mountain West. They're clearly not going to get UNLV and anybody else from the Mountain West, because though the poaching fees at this point of the game double, nobody's leaving for that. A Memphis or a Tulane from the American Athletic Conference, you're going to have to make it worth their while for that to happen. And I'm not sure if this new Pac-12 is going to be able to do that. So when it's all said and done, I think all signs point to Texas State. And then, of course, there's the mediation that's currently going on between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. And I think at some point, sooner rather than later, both of these leagues are going to find some common ground. Neither one is going to get what they want fully, but they are going to get something. And of course, a lot of that comes down to the poaching fees and the money that the Mountain West wants for the 5 schools that left their league to go join the new Pac-12. And of course, the Pac-12, as well as those departing schools, feel like they should not have to pay all of that money. So something, that both of these leagues and all of these schools involved, they are going to find some middle ground and just go on with it. But nonetheless, you look at Teresa Gold, the commissioner of the Pac-12, and her impact on this league. And it's one of those where she's been able to do what her predecessors weren't able to do, which is start to get a deal done. Granted, it's not the same players. I totally get that. And of course, the first big domino to fall for the old Pac-12 was when SC and UCLA decided to leave for the Big Ten. And of course, George Kliavkoff was non-existent, putting it mildly, in regards to his leadership, and he could not get a TV deal secured for the old Pac-12. And of course, everybody at that point just simply jumped ship, and they left Washington State and Oregon State holding the bag. But Teresa Gold, she has and continues to be committed to Oregon State, Washington State, and the new Pac-12. And of course, OSU and WSU, they're sitting in the catbird seat, trying to align themselves with who they want to align themselves in their new league, and they're building from the ground up. So when it's all said and done, will the new Pac-12 be recognized as a Group of 5, a Group of 6 conference, or a power conference? And I know that there are people out there that are holding out hope that they're going to be recognized as a power league. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm leaning towards them possibly being a recognized in that Group of 5 or Group of 6, aspect. But I'll tell you like this: if they leverage themselves enough, you never know what could happen. Okay. I think it was a solid move, of course, by the new Pac-12 to bring in Boise. Very prudent move right there. And I said years ago, okay, going back to the old Pac-12, that they should have brought in Boise from the football aspect. They never did it. Okay, you bring in Colorado State, San Diego State, Fresno State, and Utah State. And also from a basketball aspect, you're bringing in Gonzaga. Okay, I think that's going to help. And if I were a betting man, I would think somewhere along the line that the Pac-12, from a basketball aspect, they're going to circle back and go back to the West Coast Conference and get St. Mary's to bring them in with Gonzaga. St. Mary's has had a phenomenal team, a phenomenal program for about the last 20 years in the world of basketball. And of course, basically, St. Mary's has been the only team that has really prevented Gonzaga from going undefeated in the West Coast Conference. And honestly, more often than not, St. Mary's gives the Zags a run for their money. So I think they would circle back for that. You look at this Pac-12 and you ask yourself, what's next for them? All right. Clearly this is phase 1 of their media deal, which is a big step. Okay. And I think the next step, I would imagine it's either going to be to get Texas State or get the rest of this media deal done. I think both of those things happen sooner rather than later because they need to happen sooner rather than later. And then, of course, when it's all said and done, you got to wonder if some schools are going to regret not doing business with the new Pac-12. And I know people keep throwing up the name like a UNLV. And like I've said before, and I will say this again, UNLV, first and foremost, got themselves a sweetheart deal to remain in the Mountain West along with Air Force. Okay, it's one of those where you would have had to have made it worth their while, and I guess they felt like it wasn't worth their while, from an outsider's perspective. But nonetheless, I think what the Pac-12 is trying to do, they're trying to leverage themselves as being the best non-Power 4 conference currently, and I think they're well on their way to doing that. Now, of course, the old scheduling agreement, football-wise, for Oregon State and Washington State with the Mountain West was negotiated by George Kliavkoff. And, of course, at the end of the day, Washington State and Oregon State felt like that wasn't in the best interest for them. And of course, they got from under that. And I think, this is just my opinion, I feel like everybody wasn't on the same page because I feel like the Mountain West probably just figured, like, you know what, either Oregon State and Washington State were going to come to their league and just join them, or there was going to be a reverse merger. Everybody just leaves Mountain West, goes into the new Pac-12, and that was not the case either. And I felt like the new Pac-12 kind of felt like, well, if we take enough of their schools, meaning the Mountain West, that they're going to fold and they're going to want to join us. That didn't happen either because the Mountain West is showing a lot of perseverance. They're trying to hold on to things. They're bringing in UTEP. They're bringing in Northern Illinois for football. So it's still going to be a battle for both of those respective leagues right there within one another, whether it's in the courtrooms right now, mediation, or, of course, on the athletic fields. You look at the schools that are in the American Athletic Conference, of course, your Tulanes, and, of course, your Memphises. The Pac-12 is not about to go out there and fully pay their exit fees from the American to have them join up with them. I think, if I had to guess, I think it's about $27 million. I simply don't see the Pac-12 doing that. And it's one you have to wonder, could they possibly entice Memphis to be a football-only member? That could be a possibility because you're still hearing rumors behind the scenes as far as Memphis possibly looking to join up in the new Big East Conference for all of their other sports, with the exception of basketball. Also, pardon me, with football, excuse me. I will say this, just hypothetically speaking, I think UNLV in this new Pac-12 would have been intriguing along with the Memphis, but of course, that more than likely is not going to be the case. The other thing that's interesting, this deal with CBS goes through 2031. And I think the rest of these deals that they're going to get, whether it's the CW, ESPN, and Turner, if I had to be a betting man, I would say they're going to run around that same time because that's basically around the time that the media deals for a lot of these other leagues around college football are set to expire. And I know that there are some people in the new Pac-12. There are some people in the Mountain West that are holding out hope for a Big 12 invite down the road. There's not a guarantee that that's going to happen. Could it happen? Absolutely. But it's not a full-fledged guarantee. You look at it. The Big 12's currently got 16 miles of feed for football. Do they want anybody else? We've got to wait and see. Same thing goes for the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC. Okay, so it's one of those. And, of course, the Big 12 probably is the most intriguing of those Power 4 leagues to possibly some schools from the Mountain West or the Pac-12. But, it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen. So you got to wait, sit back, and take care of your business. And I think at this point right now, it's all about leveraging yourself. Okay, and the Mountain West just had to fight to hold on after after they just saw 5 schools leave, and the Pac-12 is building, and they are also looking to leverage themselves, and that is what it's all about at this point. It's all about survival. Okay, and I think this was a big step for the Pac-12 to get the exposure on the CBS because you figure with CBS, they have their Big Ten deal. But, the Big Ten also shows, a marquee game each week on Fox as well as NBC. So you're not like you got more windows to fill television wise. And I think that's going to be good, and especially if they're going to have 3 games on CBS at least. I guarantee you at least 2 of those games are going to be Boise. Okay, Boise has been a premier football program for quite some time now, and they've basically been the football equivalent, if you will, to Gonzaga in men's basketball. And people know Boise. People want to see them. They're intriguing. And on top of that, they have become a pipeline, if you will, for the National Football League. So I think getting CBS on board with that, you're going to have the CW. I would totally imagine the CW is going to get a quality game from the Mountain West. And then you have to wonder where ESPN will fit into that, possibly, as well as Turner. I would not count out Turner as a broadcast partner with the new Pac-12. But nonetheless, big step in the right direction. I think things are going to ramp up now as far as the pieces falling into place for the new Pac-12. This was a big step. Okay, getting this deal done with CBS, and let's see what's next for the new Pacific 12 Conference. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw, please feel free to like this podcast as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you want to talk more about the Pac-12, you want to talk more about the Mountain West and this whole crazy scenario that's going on right now, especially with Texas State, Memphis, listen, please feel free to drop some comments, the things you want to talk about. Let me know. I'll definitely always put the research in. It's always good to, take suggestions and come back and, have another recap about it, if you will. Also, folks, if you're out there on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, I'll give you that follow right back. The same can be said for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, check us out on the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.